Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the best time to hunt your food plots. Many of you across the United States this year had a very difficult rut. We are kind of still in the late portions of it right here in Western Kentucky. You can see I'm out here in a t-shirt and I feel just fine. So nearly 70 degrees today. I've seen that so much through the years, and generally when you get above that 60-65 degree threshold, it just shuts daytime movement down. The rut still continues, but so much of it happens at night. Very fortunate to harvest a mature buck during that spell when it's as warm as what it has been. And you couple that with the acorns that we had this year, the warm weather, and then also during this rut, we've had significant winds. We've had 15 to 25 mile an hour winds, gust up to 30 for the majority of. As that has played out, it's made the peak rut in most parts of the United States extremely difficult. And so I wanted to talk about when we are going to hunt our food plots, how we've been hunting our food plots, when is the best time of the year to hunt them, and when is that most effective. I want to start off by saying that a well-designed food plot can be hunted early season all the way through the late season. But I would also stretch to say that 90 to 95% of the plots are not well designed enough to be able to hunt early season to late season and not have any effect on your hunting. Most spots are very difficult to access. A lot of times food plots we can get in easy enough because we're going in the early afternoon. Should be no deer in the field, but getting out in the evening when the food plot fills up is a very difficult thing. We're trying to design these with, Egyptian wheat screening that you can see behind me. We've got a lot of switchgrass plantings. We've got a lot of tree plantings that are covering miscanthus. There's many different ways that we can get inside or we can get to these food plots without being detected, and that's such a critical part. If you don't have that aspect of your food plot, if you can't get to that food plot and you don't have a way to get out without busting the deer, without teaching the deer that you're hunting, you're very limited on how much you can hunt that food plot. More than likely, you're going to hunt it 2 to 3 days before the majority of the herd knows that you're in there hunting it. Some of the best plots that I've ever seen backed up to bedding deep in the timber were just like this. Bedding all the way around, just no good way to get in there, and it will quickly ruin that food plot when you start bumping deer as you enter or as you exit that stand location after you get done hunting. That's got to be absolutely key and at the forefront of our minds as we are designing where these food plots go, where these stand and blind locations go around these food plots. And we want to be able to get in and out clean. Let's break down the early season, and then we'll call it the rut, and then we'll call it the post-rut. Those are the 3 time periods that most of us are able to hunt. And we're going to break down when I think the odds are highest in your favor for hunting these food plots. So early season, we have a lot of success hunting over food plots. And that's because late fall, protein sources drop. A lot of the growing of plants for that year has come to an end or is nearing an end, right? Just like soybeans, for instance. Whitetails absolutely love green soybeans. As soon as they start turning yellow, they just drop them like they're hot. I mean, just quit eating them very quickly. The early fall plots can be a really good kind of a filler for whitetails. So as we get into that early fall, say early October, mid-October, a lot of the food sources are starting to kind of come to an end, and all of a sudden we have some high protein, high quality food sources. So whether that be something like a brassica or a clover blend or a cereal grain blend, I generally try to mix something with extreme high protein, high palatability into that plot just to help with pulling power a little bit more. So something like sunflowers, soybeans, something like that, I generally try to mix with my fall plots. And those are going to be super beneficial on pulling whitetails to that plot before the first frost. As soon as the first frost comes, they're dead, and they're not going to be any more use for the whitetails, the soybeans, and the sunflowers. The rest of the plot will continue to grow through winter and provide a lot of whitetail forage. Those food sources are really key, especially in the pre-rut. So you have a lot of does gathering on these food sources, and then you have the bucks that are periodically checking these doe bedding areas, these feeding areas, and are looking for the first doe that might come and heat. Early season, I think, is probably my second most favorite time to hunt food plots. I think it's probably the second most effective time at hunting food plots. Obviously, it's worth mentioning that on a year where you have a significant amount of acorns that are falling, the fall food plot usage is going to drop significantly. The acorns are the #1 most preferred food source by whitetails, no question about it. So they are not going to spend a significant amount of time in your brassicas, in your cereal grains, in your clovers when the white oak acorns are falling. That's just the way they are. They are available for a very short amount of time, and the whitetails are going to hammer them when they're there. So the rut is the second period, and I love hunting the rut. I love hunting food plots during the rut. We still hunt a lot of food plots during the rut here at the outfit, and we have a lot of success doing that. But it's not the best time to hunt a food plot, in my opinion. And that's because as the does are starting to try, they want to go out there and they want to feed, and they're getting harassed all the time by little bucks. They're just constantly bumping, and it basically ends up clearing the plot. And a lot of us have seen that. You start seeing the does start to file in. You get 8 or 10 does in the field, and then here comes a 1.5-year-old 4-pointer out there, and he bumps every single deer in the field off into the woods and chases them. It's not my favorite time to hunt the food plots during the rut, but it still can be absolutely effective killing mature bucks. We have done it for years on the outfit that I own, and we're very successful at doing that. The late season is by far my favorite time to hunt food plots. There's a couple of reasons for this. Actually, there's several reasons for this. We're going to go through them right here. So #1, most of the food sources have dried up at that point. So by the time we get into, say, early December, mid-December around here, the crops have been harvested for 60 days at this point. There's very little waste grain left in the fields. White oak acorns are generally going to be wiped out or rotted by that point. So white oak acorns have very low tannic acid levels in them. And so what happens is they rot really, really quickly. And they are there for a very short amount of time. Even if your wood still has a lot of them on the forest floor, a month or two after, they're almost certainly all have rotted by that point. Red oaks kind of are on the other end of that spectrum. They have a lot of tannic acid in them, which acts kind of as a preservative. And so deer will eat the white oaks first because there's very little tannic acid. And then as the white oaks get cleaned up, they go to the red oaks. And generally there's still some red oak acorns around in the late season. And that's a good thing for whitetails. It gives them some more food to be able to get through winter. But so you have those things. The acorns are pretty much cleaned up. The waste grain left in the fields is pretty much gone. The third thing that we've got is now we're not really worried as much about the little 4-pointers bumping every single doe around. So once the rut starts to kind of wind down, the does kind of get back to their pattern. They're going to be in their bedding areas, and they're going to go to food, bedding to food, bedding to food. And the mature bucks are going to be doing the same thing, except they are still actively looking for those last remaining does. And so the last remaining does are going to be on the food plots, right? So they're not going to be spread out all over the woods generally because the acorns are not there. They're going to be actively going to the standing corn food plots, the brassica plots, the clover plots, the cereal grain plots. They're going to be spending a lot more time in there. So in turn, your bucks are going to be doing the exact same thing. At the same time, your bucks are trying to rebuild from the rut. They have been run down to the point of losing a significant amount of body weight during the rut. So they are starting to try to rebuild. At this point, they're not full rebuilding, right? They are starting to eat a lot more than what they have during the rut, but they are still covering a lot of ground and looking for those last remaining does. And the last reason that I love hunting the food plots in the late season is because you have a lot of does that either didn't get bred the first time, or our young does that make it up to a certain weight, usually between 60 and 80 pounds. Once they cross that threshold, they are ready to be bred for that year. Well, in Kentucky, a lot of our young fawns will reach that by the first fall, especially the ones that are first dropped. So they will be getting bred as well. The bucks are going to be actively looking at these food plots. They're going to be actively looking for any does that got missed the first time, and as they cycle back in, and they're also going to be looking for those fawns that are able to be bred this fall because they've got enough weight to them. Late season is absolute fire, and I think it gets kind of pushed to the side. And I think a lot of folks hunt the rut, and they hunt it, and they get burned out during the rut because honestly the rut is hit and miss. It just is. You may go out there 5 days in a row and see very limited action, and the 6th day it just all of a sudden be fire inside where you're hunting. And so the rut can be really, really almost basically just say depressing if you're not in the right location. And the action's not going on where you're at. Boy, it can be really frustrating and depressing to continue hunting all day sits. and all day sits and still not seeing the quality bucks that you want to see, or may not seeing the deer that you want to see, period. I like the late season, and as I started the outfit several years ago, we had our rifle season, which runs basically in the peak rut, 2 weeks in November, and then we have our late season muzzleloader, which is the second week in December. You know, I was trying to sell hunts for that late December season, and I just couldn't do it. And people are like, there's no way there's going to be anything left after you hunt for 2 weeks with a rifle in November during the rut. There's never going to be anything left. And what we found is that's some of the best hunting of the year. If you have the food sources and you get a cold shot of weather, which is much more likely in the second week of December than it is the first week of November. The key to this entire thing is having a diverse food source, right? So if you have acorns and the acorns are drop, you're going to be in the money. If you have standing corn and the acorns don't drop that year, you're going to be in the money. So the more boxes that you can check on your property and have more diversity, that's where you're going to have your highest odds of killing mature bucks every single year on your property. If you need help setting up your deer hunting farms, you can go to my website, www.diyfoodplotpro.com. Click on Boots on the Ground consultation, Boots on the Ground visit, and I will come to your farm this winter and we'll develop a plan for it to make that farm hunt as best as it possibly can, with designing access, screening, food plots, standing blind locations, mock scrape, water holes. The whole 9 yards will be in that plan. It'll be a full blueprint of what you need to turn that farm into the best hunting property in the neighborhood. So if that's something that interests you, you can go to my website, www.diyfoodplotpro.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Y'all smash that like and subscribe button.